kind of liberating to watch these older horror films, especially European ones, because it's impossible to judge them by any kind of standard or metric you would a modern horror film. And that sort of frees you up to just enjoy or not enjoy, depending on the film, what's going on the screen. And Tombs of the Blind Dead is pretty esoteric as far as horror films go, I would say, because it came out in '71 and it was made in Spain. Presumably low budget. It looks pretty low budget for '71, but it has this like grimy cheapness to it that's really appealing. And it's not shot well, and it's not written well, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it is pretty atmospheric, and it's not frustrating to watch. It's just sort of like looking through a window into a different time for a couple of hours. And honestly, this is a film that I kind of would really like to see remade, because the premise is actually pretty great. A young woman, she gets pissed at her boyfriend for flirting with her friend, and she jumps off of a train, and in a huff, storms off to this castle, this abandoned castle, where she spends the night, and accidentally resurrects, or I guess disturbs the rest of these Templars, I guess the corpses of these Templars, who were hanged for worshipping the devil back in like the 1300s, and they had their eyes pecked out by crows. So, like, hence Tombs of the Blind Dead, right? Even though there's not really any tombs in this movie. There's some like gravestones that wiggle around, and like a sarcophagus that gets opened from the inside, and a goofy skeleton puppet hand pops out. But yeah, I like the idea of the zombies that are the monsters that come back being like a religious order, And I wish this movie would have played more into that, like having weird esoteric rituals and then needing a sacrifice for some reason or another, and just giving a little more structure to the way the monsters work, because that's so satisfying when it's done well in a film, and you take an interesting idea like Satan worshipping Templars, and this film kind of squanders that because it's just dudes in like Skeletor outfits. They look like dollar store Nazgul. They just kind of shuffle around, and like there's one shot where one of the girls is trying to escape them, and she figures out that they're blind or whatever, and she's like up against the wall. She's trying not to breathe or whatever, and she puts her hand over her heart, and she can like feel her own heartbeat, and she kind of hear her own heartbeat, and the camera zooms in closer and closer with every beat, and that's actually a pretty effective like little piece of that scene. But it cuts over to the zombies, and they're all just kind of standing around in their Skeletor outfits. And also they have horses, and for some reason the horses don't look decayed at all. They just put like a dirty sheet over the horses. It's kind of charming. At the end of the film, they get on a train and somehow drive a locomotive to the nearby city and start to attack it. Which, why would a knight from like 1257 know how to operate? I guess you could say, oh, it's magic or whatever, but it's just kind of goofy. And apparently the version I watched was the edited down version for American audiences, and I think the only difference is they took out like some blood and some nudity, and honestly that wouldn't have helped this film at all. Like, you get the like gritty shitty production values perfectly well without the tits and the blood. Editing is it's just all over the place. Like, their shots just last for minutes, it seems. And early on in the film, there's a 10-minute sequence of the main girl at the time, just following her around as she explores this abandoned castle. And it's just her walking around these ruins for like 10 minutes, and then she like smokes a cigarette and reads a book and goes to sleep, and then the zombies come out. I'm pretty sure they reuse shots of the Templars emerging from their graves over and over, because a couple of those seem pretty familiar, and they bring those in at the beginning of the film, and then again at the end. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of cute, you know, like, it's like, oh, they tried. The film opens pretty strong, actually, with the Templars back in the 13th century, or whenever, like, riding around this castle, and they have like a woman, and they string her up on these boards, and it's like in this huge chamber, and they're riding their horses around her in a circle, and as they ride past her, they slash her, and it's really pretty unsettling and horrible, and it's a really good tone setter, but that doesn't carry into the rest of the film. But it is worth a watch if you're interested in the history of horror and European horror in particular.